There's a book that only needs you to read it once. Not chant it, not summon anything, not even mean it. Just read the last line out loud, and something under your skin starts growing roots. Just outside a small town in New Zealand stood a modest wooden house, ringed by dense pine forest, low hills, and a deep lake behind it. It belonged to an old man named Richard. One afternoon, the postman arrived to find the front door wide open. He called Richard's name as he stepped inside, and found the house completely empty. No sign of him anywhere. Richard had been missing for days. Once police were notified, they searched the property, the surrounding forest, and the lake thoroughly, but found nothing. Weeks later, he was declared legally dead, and the house passed to his granddaughter, Mia. Mia was 25 and living in Los Angeles when the news reached her. She flew out almost immediately. Her plan was simple: clean the place up, sort through the paperwork, sell the property, and go home. The cleaning took most of the day. By evening, only the garage remained: old tools, fishing gear, wooden crates, rusted metal shelving. Behind the very last shelf, wedged against the wall, sat a thick bundle wrapped in black cloth. Mia pulled the cloth away. Underneath was an old, heavy book, its cover stitched together from mismatched pieces of leather, centered around a strange circular symbol. Tangled tree roots, and at the center of them, a distorted, screaming face. She opened to the first page. Deep red ink covered it in unfamiliar words, surrounded by unsettling illustrations. Inverted trees, long-fanged monstrous shapes half-formed in mist. I like symbols so precisely drawn they seemed to track her from the page. Then her eyes caught on a specific line of text, and without meaning to, without any conscious decision, she began reading it aloud. The instant the final word left her lips, a sharp burning sensation shot through the fingers of her right hand. She slammed the book shut on reflex. Outside, the sky turned black in seconds. Wind tore through the pines hard enough to bend every tree in a single direction. The lake's surface, calm all day, erupted into violent waves. Mia looked out the window. Dozens of black crows were circling low over the house. She looked down at her own hand. A thin black line had risen between her fingers. Not like a burn scar, but something moving beneath the skin, branching outward exactly like the roots on the book's cover. Panicking, she wrapped the book back in its cloth and shoved it behind the shelf, slammed the garage door, and went straight upstairs to the bedroom. Within minutes, the weather outside had returned completely to normal. Clear sky, calm lake. The crows were gone. But the dark lines on her hand hadn't gone anywhere. Exhausted from the day's work, Mia collapsed onto the bed and fell into a heavy sleep until a scream tore her out of it. A man's voice, calling for help, coming from the living room downstairs. She crept down the stairs slowly and froze the second she reached the doorway. The old book sat on the dining table exactly where she'd left it in the garage, except now, sitting beside it, was her grandfather, Richard, screaming for help. He looked emaciated, hollow-cheeked, his clothes caked in wet mud, deep black circles beneath his eyes. Mia stood in shock, not just at seeing him alive but at the state he was in. Shaking, she calmed him and got him water. Richard kept glancing around every corner of the room, the windows, the ceiling, over his shoulder, unable to speak for a long moment, just trying to catch his breath. Eventually, the story came out. Years earlier, when he'd first bought the house, he'd found this same book hidden behind a shelf. He'd opened it and started reading. From that day on, he began sensing something else living in the house alongside him. First just sounds, then faces, different every day, each one wearing the shape of someone he loved. Richard explained that the book housed the spirit of an ancient, monstrous entity, and it was fear of that presence that had driven him to abandon the house entirely. He'd been hiding in an old cabin by the lake ever since, surviving alone in the woods. But when he'd seen tonight's storm and the crows circling from a distance, he knew immediately. It had started again. That's why he'd come back, to save Mia before it was too late. Richard hadn't even finished speaking when his gaze snapped toward the kitchen window. When Mia turned to look, she saw a girl standing in the dark tree line, staring back. Her entire face burned beyond recognition. A chill ran straight through Mia's body. At that exact moment, Richard's face began to change. The veins in his neck bulged, darkening to black. His eyes turned solid, milky white, and fury contorted every feature of his face, as if something else had taken control of him entirely. The book on the dining table opened on its own, pages flipping without any wind, and with each new page, the same circular symbol from the cover began burning itself into the wooden walls around them. The dead fireplace roared to life without warning. Mia lunged for the book, trying to slam it shut, but the second her hand touched the cover, her veins caught fire. The pain was so intense it felt like her palm had been packed with hot coals. Slowly, the same black symbols began crawling up her arm. Richard grabbed a candlestick off the table. Melted wax poured over his hands as he gripped it, but he didn't pull away, didn't make a single sound of pain. Consumed by rage, he advanced on Mia, candlestick raised like a weapon. Outside, the sky turned black again, and the crows returned in force, circling the house. Mia dodged the swing and shoved Richard backward, hard enough that he slammed into the wall. The candlestick's flame caught the curtains, and within seconds, the entire house was ablaze. Richard was caught in the flames, unable to escape. Mia scrambled for the kitchen window, desperate to reach the forest, where the burned girl still stood watching. But the moment she threw the window open, she saw the truth. The girl in the trees wasn't a stranger. It was her. Her own face, burned and staring back at herself. The flames swallowed her a moment later. By the time the fire brigade arrived, it was already far too late. When police reached the scene, they found the charred remains of both Richard and Mia, a discovery that left even hardened officers visibly shaken. The entire house had burned down to ash. The book, however, sat untouched on what remained of the dining table. Not a single page scorched, completely intact. The house is gone. The people are gone. The book isn't. Some things don't need a house to wade in. They just need someone curious enough to read the last line out loud. If this one kept you hooked till the end, hit subscribe. Next week, we're covering what happened to the officer who logged that book into evidence. Comment open book if you'd have stopped reading before the last line.